Are you just starting out your Rise of Kingdoms journey and you're wondering what commanders you should be running in the field but have no legendaries? Well, don't worry. I have you with my epic commander guide. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Rise of Kingdoms content from your very own Shappy Gaming. If you haven't already, do be sure to hit that subscribe button if you feel that I've earned it. But if I haven't yet, then stay tuned, because today we are going to be covering some of the epic commanders that you should be running early on in Rise of Kingdoms. And not only that, but we're going to be talking through talents and skills and trees that you should be running with these commanders. I know you want to know, who should I be pairing? How can I best perform in the field early on? We've all been there. We start the game, we're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, but we have no idea which commanders we should start with. And a lot of that comes down to who you pick as your first civilization. So I have covered that in a different video. But just as a refresher, let's click through and see all of the different civilizations that we have available to us. We have Rome, which gives you infantry defense and march speed by 5%. But again, this is about commanders. So if you start with Rome, you're getting Scipio first. If you start with Germany, you get Hermann. You start with Britain, you get Boudica. Start with France, you get Joan. If you start with Vikings, you get Bjorn, and you get infantry attack of 5%, counterattack of 3%, and troop load of 10%. Start with China, you get Sun Tzu, and you start with Japan, you get Kusunoki. The list goes on. I can go into, Korea, you get Eulogy, Spain, you get Pelagius, Arabia, you get Belly. But I think that the civilization I would recommend you start with, if you're only just now starting Rise of Kingdoms, and you're like, I need a good epic commander pair right off the bat, is going to be China. And the reason that I say that is not only do you get the troop defense of 3%, you get action point recovery of 5%, which is huge. You need to be barbing a lot when you first start out. That's how you get your resources, and that's how you get your speed ups. And building speed is increased by 5%. This will help you get to City Hall 25 faster and really help you in the long run. So we're going to start with Sun Tzu. If we start with Sun Tzu, we should be asking ourselves, who should I be running with Sun Tzu? And so there are a number of different people you could pair with Sun Tzu. You could do Sun Tzu Joan, you could do Sun Tzu Scipio, you could do Sun Tzu Eulogy. But the pair that I would recommend most with Sun Tzu is actually going to be Bjorn. And the reason I say that is Sun Tzu has this phenomenal AoE damage. If he's expertise, he deals direct damage to 5 targets in a fan-shaped area with a damage factor of 800 and deals additional damage to the target on the next turn of 200. So that's 1,000 damage total. And he gets a lot of rage for each target hit by the skill, which is even better. Not only that, but Sun Tzu also takes 10% less damage and infantry units gain 10% health. So if you're new to the game, health is what you want. Health is better than both attack and defense. So Sun Tzu's really well rounded. And if you're worried about getting zeroed, you've got a nice little garrison commander right off the bat. Not only that, but Sun Tzu has a buff that gives him 20% increased skill damage. Not only that, but it also gives his secondary commander the buff. And if you're new to the game, the primary commander is the one that the talent tree applies to, as well as equipment. And so it does matter if you choose to run Bjorn first over Sun Tzu. And that is the recommendation. You should be running Bjorn in front of Sun Tzu for a couple reasons. For one, Bjorn has infantry, conquering, and skill. This is a better talent setup than Sun Tzu, who has garrison. If you're trying to fight in the field, that garrison tree is not going to help you at all. Additionally, Bjorn has some phenomenal skills. You want this first skill, deals direct damage of 700, causing the target and up to 2 nearby enemies in a forward-facing fan-shaped area to take 15% increased skill damage for 3 seconds. This is why you want Bjorn in front of Sun Tzu, because both Bjorn and Sun Tzu have a rage requirement of 1,000. And so you want Bjorn's skill to trigger first, so that the targets that Sun Tzu's AoE is going to hit are going to take 15% increased skill damage in addition to the damage that they're already getting the 20% buff from Sun Tzu's skill. So this is going to deal a lot of nuke damage very quickly. Additionally, you get your 15% increase attack when attacking cities. That doesn't matter as much when you're little. I would encourage you not to be attacking cities. We have infantry units led by this commander, again, 10% increased attack and 10% increased defense. So we saw that Sun Tzu had health coverage and he had damage taken coverage, but he did not have attack or defense coverage. So Bjorn is the perfect partner for him because it rounds out his skills and it gets him set up really, really well. Then we have normal attacks have a 10% chance to deal direct damage to the target. Even better. Extra damage helps, especially if you're trying to take out targets in the field. And this is normal attacks, so it doesn't have to be skill triggered. And that's the pair that we're talking about first. So Bjorn with Sun Tzu is going to be your best infantry pair. And I would encourage you to set up the talents as follows. You're going to want to get to at least rejuvenate, and you're going to get all of these skills here. You may also want clarity as well. And the reason you want clarity when you're having Sun Tzu is if you have Bjorn trigger his skill and then Sun Tzu after, then Sun Tzu is now getting an additional 6% skill damage. So that's huge. So you want to get at least to clarity and at least to rejuvenate on the infantry skill. I would not do Naked Rage because if you're in the field and you're attacking multiple targets, odds are fairly high you're getting swarmed. You don't want this. You can then also go all the way up to the infantry tree, which I would encourage you not to go for Snare of Thorns. So I would say probably at least get Iron Spear all the way up. March speed is not going to matter for you. You're going to get caught either way. So I would encourage you to go for health. Again, health is always king. And go for Hold the Line. This will help reduce damage taken. It'll make you more tanky in the field. So that is my talent tree recommendation for you. Get these two and then go for Hold the Line. If you have extra skill points after, I would go for probably the Buckler Shield. It'll help you in the long run. This skill may be tempting, but you're rarely at 90% strength. So there is the recommendation for Bjorn Sun Tzu. That is going to be the best infantry epic pair you can run off the bat. The next pair we're going to be talking about is Belisarius with Baybars. I hope I pronounced his name right. And this pair is especially useful early on in the game during Mightiest Governor event. I don't know if your kingdom has fixed Mightiest Governor. It probably doesn't early on. And so you want the best hit and run pair that you can have in the game. That is going to be Belisarius Baybars, even late into the game. And the reason for that, and the reason this pair is so versatile, is as follows. Belisarius' first skill deals direct damage to the target pretty low and reduces its attack and defense by 30% for 2 seconds. That's huge. That is a massive debuff. It's a debuff that works late into the game, even after KVK 1. And the reason that you want him with Baybars is you have this attack and defense reduction debuff, but if we look over at Baybars as well, and you want Belisarius first, Baybars second, is after that troop is debuffed, you then deal direct damage to 5 targets in a forward-facing fan shape area of 1,000 and decrease their march speed by 50%. So you've now dealt a ton of damage and they can't run away, which means your next skill is going to pop off. You've got a really nice cycle going. Then we have a barb skill, not terribly important. But the other reason why this pair works so well is this skill right here, Bucellary. The passive skill of Belisarius, which gives cavalry units led by this commander 30% increased defense. And after leaving battle, troops' march speed gets increased by 50% for 10 seconds. To make matters even more exciting, troops led by Belisarius deal 25% increased damage when the target has fewer than 50% of units remaining. And this is just an advantage of Bucellary. It essentially means that you can run faster after battle. This is the best hit and run march that you can have as an epic player. This is before you have Cow, but the way I would do this is I'd probably go mostly cavalry tree with mobility. You really want to maximize your running away speed. And so this is a hit and run march. Ignore this talent tree over here. I use him for barbing now, late in the game. but I would still go all the way up here for cavalry as much as you possibly can, because in a field battle, that's going to help you out. I would take all these talents that I have over here and I'd move them over here. Go for march speed on your Belisarius Baibars. Now I will talk for a second here. Baibars is giving you 30% increased defense. Or Belisarius's. Baibars is giving you increased attack. So again, you're balancing your two commanders. We already talked about this first skill, which deals a ton of damage, but it is worth noting, Baibars is one of the only commanders that deals AoE damage of 1,000 without a 15% deduction for additional targets. So you can hit all 5 targets with 1,000 damage factor. That's huge. This next skill doesn't matter as much for you're going to be attacking cities, but I would typically encourage not doing that. The next skill, which makes these two work so well together, is this one, the Great Panther. Upon leaving battle, but not when routed, so you can't have sad face, Baibars heals a portion of slightly wounded units, healing factor 200, and his troops gain 50% increased smart speed for 10 seconds. So, very similar to Belisarius' skill. When you want to run away, you're getting a 50% march speed bonus from Baibars, and you're getting a 50% march speed bonus from Belisarius. They will not catch you. So that's huge. That pair is the best cavalry pair for epic early on. For talents, again, I already talked about it. You're going to want to be going mobility and cavalry. Peacekeeping is not what you want for these two if you're fighting in the field. Swiftly moving onwards, we have archers. So we've talked about infantry, we've talked about cavalry. Now for your archer pair. So the archer pair that I would highly recommend is going to be Hermann with Kiera. And the reason that I recommend that pair is as follows. Hermann deals a ton of skill damage. He deals direct damage to a target of 1150 and reduces its rage by 100 and silences it for 2 seconds. Silence means that they can't use a skill damage attack when they're silenced. That's huge. Additionally, archer units led by this commander get 10% increased attack and 10% increased march speed. This is going to help you catch those infantry marches as they're running away. However, you don't get health coverage here and you also don't get defense. So you need to make that up somewhere. And that's why Kiera is a perfect pair. You have garrison coverage, which is nice. But again, you know, for garrison, I would recommend Sun Tzu. Just because infantry is going to be better for that. I think that Hermann is good, but, you know, early on in the game, you really want to avoid getting zeroed. The next skill is increases normal attack damage of troops led by this commander by 10%, and normal attacks have a 10% chance of granting additional rage. This means you are pumping out that silence and skill damage early and often to your opponent. So let's talk about why you want him with Kiera. So Kiera has similar skill tree. You have archer and peacekeeping and skill. So you're still going to run the archer and skill tree. But let's talk about Kiera. She deals additional direct damage to up to 3 enemies in a forward-facing fan-shaped area with a damage factor of 1,000. That's a lot of damage. And damage dealt to each target is reduced by 15% for each additional target. That's pretty much standard. That's a lot of skill damage. This is a barb skill, doesn't matter quite as much, but it will help you with these scenario battles early on. Scenario battles are a phenomenal way to get speed ups. They're a phenomenal way to get equipment. They're really nice when you're first starting out. It'll help you in the long run, I promise. The next skill we're talking about is potentially the most important here. And that is that archer units led by this commander get 10% increased attack and 10% increased defense. This balances out Hermann's lack of defense. You get extra attack, which is awesome, and you get extra defense. And this next skill is even more exciting. The normal attack of troops led by this commander have a 10% chance to increase skill damage by 30% for 3 seconds. And this is why you want to have Hermann with Kiera, because that skill damage is going to get a 30% increase for both of them. And both of these are nuking high skill damage commanders. So that's why Hermann and Kiera is a good pair for you. You may want to put Kiera in front of Hermann. If you're running the archer and skill tree, it doesn't matter quite as much. But it's all about your preference. I actually would encourage you to do Kiera with Herman, because then the Herman silence of 2 seconds makes it so you're triggering your other skill earlier than they are. So we've covered archers, we've covered infantry, and we've covered cavalry. Now we are on to some of the mix and match marches, and I have 2 of those for you today. The first we're going to be covering is one that has been effective in the field for a very long time, and that is Scipio with Joan of Arc. And I will encourage you to run 5 marches in the field if you can early on, because then you get the buffs of each march. So Scipio. Why does Scipio Joan work? They work because you can run mixed troops, which if you're early on, you may not have 200k of each troop just yet. And so Scipio Joan is really useful early on. Not only that, but Joan is great for leadership commanders because of her first skill, which we will cover very shortly. So here is Scipio's skill. Troops led by this commander take 25% reduced damage and deal 25% increased counterattack damage for 5 seconds. Why does this matter? This is going to make Scipio very tanky because he's taking reduced damage and he's dealing counterattack damage. If you might not know, counterattack damage is dealt to all targets that are attacking this particular march. So even if you're not attacking someone and you're getting swarmed, this is going to help you out a ton. This next skill is the expertise version, but when attacked, troops led by Scipio have a 15% chance to gain 100% increased attack for 2 seconds. This effect can only trigger once every 5 seconds, and when fewer than 40% of the troops led by Scipio remain, they also have a 15% chance to heal a portion of slightly wounded troops. Again, Scipio is going to be very tanky here. And when attacked, troops led by Scipio have a 15% chance to gain 100% increased attack. Note, this is when attacked. So again, Scipio is going to be swarm proof. You don't have to be attacking one march for this to work. If you're getting swarmed, every attack that an enemy makes on you has a 15% chance of getting this increased attack. You don't want to swarm Scipio, but if you have him out in the field, you definitely are okay with him getting swarmed. Last but not least, we've got troops led by this commander get 10% increased troop capacity. This is nice, especially if you're going to be running mixed troops. It gets you more troops in the field early on. Now, let's talk a little bit about why you're going to want Scipio first and why Joan is such a great pair. So Scipio is first because you do want to be running this attack tree and you do want to be running leadership. You don't need Name of the King. You do not need it. You're not launching rally attacks with him. But what you do want is you want to get to strategic prowess, because strategic prowess is going to be very useful in terms of troop defense, which Scipio does not have a buff for. He does have a buff for attack. I would also encourage you to get to effortless, which is going to increase all damage dealt, which includes counterattack damage, and armored joints if you can, which will reduce all damage taken. This is the tree I would actually recommend you copy. I would say don't do the conquering tree. Do not do these. This is only if you're attacking cities. Don't do them. The perfect Scipio tree includes the buckler shield as well as this one, victory charge. And you're probably not going to want martial mastery, although maybe you will, because Scipio's not dealing a whole lot of skill damage. I would not do fight to the death. Do not do fight to the death. This will hurt you in the long run. Okay, let's talk about Scipio and Joan. Joan is a phenomenal commander early on. Not only is she great for gathering, but she has this buff, which is a potentially the best buff in the game. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But when she triggers her skill, for the next 4 seconds, troop led by this commander and nearby allied troops get 30% increased health for infantry units. Again, infantry and health are going to help here. If you're running Scipio mixed, you may want to put more infantry in there because they're getting the better buff of health. 30% increased defense for cavalry units and 30% increased attack for archer units. Joan is the perfect setup for a mixed troops commander because all of the troops within that march are getting a buff. And you get 50% increased rage per second, which means you're triggering that damage taken reduction and counterattack damage buff more often. Next we have gathering. I don't think you guys terribly care about that for combat. This is going to be Joan's healing skill. And this is normal attacks of troops led by this commander have a 10% chance to heal a portion of slightly wounded units with a healing factor of 450. And this effect can only trigger once every 5 seconds. So as you saw, Scipio's skill over here is going to give him some healing factor. Well, so is Joan. This is going to help make your march even tankier. And this next skill is even better. And this increases normal attack damage of troops led by this commander by 25%. If you don't know already, the majority of damage dealt with in battle is normal attack damage and counterattack damage. If you're increasing your normal attack damage, then you're making that Scipio march even more tanky. And if you have more troops on the field than everyone else, hence that troop capacity buff, then this is going to be huge for you because you're getting a multiplier on the number of troops that you have out in the field. So Scipio Joan, a phenomenal march. The last march that we are going to be covering today, and I appreciate you sticking around. If you haven't already, do hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner. It is free. It just helps me out. Is going to be Eulogy and Boudica. I'm sorry if I mispronounce both of them, but hear me out here. So Eulogy is an infantry commander, and if you're running Eulogy, you're probably going to want to use infantry and attack as his talents. And if you want more detail, let me know. You could probably look up the tree. But here's why Eulogy and Boudica work. So Eulogy deals direct damage to the target of a damage factor of 750 and decreases their defense by 30% for the next 2 seconds. Which means you want to put a nuking commander behind him. You could use Sun Tzu, but I would encourage you putting Sun Tzu with Bjorn instead. This next skill is a garrison skill. Gives you troops in your garrison 5% defense. If you have Sun Tzu Eulogy on your wall, you're probably in good shape. This next skill is infantry units led by this commander get 15% increased attack and 15% increased defense. We saw this with Bjorn. Very balanced. This will make Eulogy super balanced and it'll give him a little bit of tankiness to him. Just to make things even spicier, Strike Back, which is when attacked, Eulogy has a 10% chance to increase his own troops' damage by 100% on the next turn. Now this is why you want Boudica or someone else with skill damage behind Eulogy, because his next turn may very well be a skill damage attack. So let's talk about Boudica. Boudica deals direct damage to a target of 1,000 and reduces its rage by 100. This is going to make it so you're triggering your attacks more than they are. And it reduces their attack by 25% for 2 seconds. So you've reduced their defense by 30%, and now you just hit them with a massive skill damage, and you've reduced their attack. This is awesome. Her next skill is when using a skill, gain 50% rage and heal a portion of your slightly wounded units. This is going to give Eulogy a little bit more tankiness, and it's going to help him trigger his skills more often, which is going to feed into Boudica. This last skill is also pretty interesting, and troops led by this commander have a 5% chance to increase their damage on their next turn with each attack, a 5% chance to increase by 50%, 3% chance to increase by 100, and a 2% chance to increase by 150%. No, I would still put Eulogy in front of Boudica. This extra damage is phenomenal, but Boudica is more likely to get attacked in the field, and the integration and skill tree is not going to treat you as well as the infantry and attack tree will. So, I hope that this has helped you out. Go forth and conquer your enemies with Belisarius and Baybars, Bjorn and Sun Tzu, Hermann and Kiera, Scipio Joan, and Eulogy and Boudica. I hope that you've enjoyed. I've given you your 5 epic commander marches to triumph over your enemies. Shappy out.